There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Right, sweet. So we're recording, and I'll send it over straight away.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Cool, cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So Tommy, pretty much basically have you been in since lockdown? Have you been
Yeah,
coping?
it's I think it's been okay. Like, I'm on a good tempo, so it's kind of a little. It tastes a little bit like Groundhog Day, but it feels good. Like we could be having this chat. I could be thinking, oh, it's been an interesting 3 weeks or an interesting 5 weeks, but it's been an interesting 8 weeks. So it's kind of cool. Like it's a holding pattern that I'm quite happy with. So I'm grateful for that because if it was anything less than that, I think I'd be tearing my hair out by now. But yeah, it feels good. It's all right.
Have you sort of like faced new challenges doing this? Have you sort of had to come up with new ways to entertain yourself or like develop a new structure? Because I know I have.
Definitely. The biggest one is that now work starts at like 8 p.m. until midnight. And that's because I tried to work in the day. It's impossible with two little ones running around. One's three and one's one. So it's like, it's different to someone who has maybe homeschool age kids because you literally have to stop them from dying all day. Like you have to watch them at every sharp corner, every toy that's too small. So it's full on. And even though there's two of us here, my wife and I are both here, it's just unfair to go two against one. So when they're when they're asleep, that's when I can work.
You can finally relax. You can put your feet up and get some work done.
Yeah, I'm doing it here in obviously if you can't see us and only hear us, I'm in my garage, but it's like I call it the bunker, because when lockdown happened and obviously I had to shut my gym, so I had no office to work from. I just grabbed my computer and I grabbed like a few books and this banner, and I was like, right, got to clear the garage out because it was just a dump. So I've got like a sofa, as you can see there.
Yeah.
I've got all my microphone, my lights.
It's kind of like a mini studio.
It is. I mean, it's got potential. What I want to do eventually is just kit the whole thing out. But at the moment, it's the bunker, and I love it.
It'll do for now, definitely.
It will.
So have you, since lockdown has begun, has it sort of like forced you into new creative ways of thinking?
Yeah, it has. It's so I tried at first to go sort of gung ho and be at the front of the queue in terms of like being someone who can help, being someone who can help other businesses through this like weird period. And then I suddenly realized that it's kind of very unpredictable stood there talking to people and trying to assume you know what's going on because every business is so different and every challenge is so different and every bank account is different and every like procurement chain is different and every client relationship is different. So I just kind of took a step back for a couple of weeks and was like, let's just get a feel for what's going on here. And the creative thinking that I've done and that I've found myself doing is just kind of not trying so hard
Yeah.
and just going with the flow, not putting extra added pressure on me or anybody else, and just kind of serving the clients that I have and putting out lots of free content for people to help them. And then I've kind of gone, all right, well, I feel pretty good about that, so I might start writing. Um, so yeah, I've kind of got an idea of what that is, but I'm going to sort of start putting pen to paper and start writing the next book.
Oh, okay, a new book.
Yeah, yeah, a new book. Yeah, you've heard it
Excellent.
here. This is an exclusive, a world exclusive.
The, the first information drop is right here, right now.
Exactly. Yeah, this
Tommy
is it.
G is writing a new book.
It's a scoop. It's an inside scoop. Yeah, we'll see.
Amazing, amazing. So, with this, I mean, I've asked a lot of people this question. What would be the first thing you would do once lockdown's over, if it ever is over, of course?
Yeah, I've sort of thought about this myself, really, and I'm a man of simple pleasures. I mean, aside from the business stuff of getting back in there and opening the gym up, because I run technically three businesses, but two that are kind of active. The gym is one, and my role there is to get things up and running and safe and secure. And then my team will take it from there. So, that's on my mind. I know that's coming. I'm not really looking forward to that as such, but I know I've got to do it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm most looking forward to just everyone else just being good, because I just want everyone else to just feel content and back to normal, because that affects. I'm sort of hypersensitive to how people are, and at the moment, it's very edgy, and it's lovely as well, because you do get, like, I go for runs sometimes outside, and you get lots of people that are very friendly and happy, but you also get people that are just terrified. They're scared, and you can see that on their faces. And that's not because they're outside and I'm running past them. It's because all day long they've been thinking all these terrifying things, and they're wearing it on their face day in, day out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to just everybody just being confident that they're going to be safe, which I'm sure everyone is, but definitely that's what I'm looking forward to the most, because it just really, I'm okay. It sounds awful, but I feel okay. But you can just tell others don't, and and that's what I want. Yeah.
Are you trying to sort of get a message across to those people who are maybe thinking negative thoughts and struggling more than, obviously, you're a strong-minded person. You can, you accept like these new challenges, almost like a duck going to water. So do you have any advice to people who are maybe overthinking or worried about the future?
Yeah, it's difficult, mate. Like, I do have advice. My advice is surface level. Only control what you can control. There's a lot that we can't control. If we try, it's like putting your finger in fire. It's not going to work, and the longer you hold it there, the more it's going to hurt. So that's the advice. And then from the first sort of angle of what you asked there, in terms of like, have I been doing that? I have, but I'm really, really sensitive to the fact that nobody knows what anyone else is going through right now.
Yeah.
And being able to bring assumptions of like how people feel when everybody's orbit is so different. You've got some people that are working out there, key workers. You've got some people that are working at home. You've got some people that are homeschooling. You've got some people that are on their own in lockdown and don't have anything to do, and it's driving them crazy. So like, to go out and just give advice, I think it's not going to hurt anyone, but there's a risk of being insensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've been not trying to sort of, because what I used to do, and what I usually do is get, like, say I'd do something like this with you now, even I would record this, and then I would take segments of what I said and I put that on Facebook and Instagram, and just keep that, radiating outwards, because it's helpful. I've not done that so much. Instead, I've been doing something called, I've called it bunker talk. So once a week, in here, live on Facebook, I go for about an hour and I just chat, and people come on and they ask questions and stuff like that. But like, I don't want to go pushing that down people's throats. If they find it, they'll find it. It will help them. What I don't want to be doing is trying to suggest I know what people should do, because everyone's life is so very different right now.
Well, I don't think anyone sort of knows like how to do or what's going to happen exactly. But I mean, I suppose sticking together and communicating with one another it's not going to do any harm. But this bunker talk, I mean, you say you do it once a week.
Yeah.
What days do you have a specific set day for that?
Kind of do now. At first, it was just like whenever I had time in between work, and as I said, I've only got a limited amount of hours every night. So now I've just committed to Tuesdays. So actually Tuesday, yeah, I've done 5, and I've put the audio onto my podcast as well. So it's not going to be for everyone. Don't get me wrong. Like, some people, they won't want to A, join in, or B, listen. But I know that those that do find it very, very useful. And I know that because of the comments. I know that because of the messages that I get afterwards. And what it is, mate, it's basically like, I show up, and then we have people tuning in from all over the world. We have people from, obviously, the UK, people from America, Russia. We've had people from Sweden. We've had people from Australia, New Zealand. And all we do is just make sure that every single person who listens knows that they're not the only one that's going through this. Yeah. And they're not the only one that sucks. Because I think that's the really interesting psychology, is like, even before lockdown, if we're challenged by something and we struggle with something, we feel like we're the odd one out, and we look around us, especially if we're looking around on Instagram or whatever, and we go, well, everyone else seems to have their shit together here. It's like me that's the odd one out. And now that's been sort of amplified. And if you're not baking or going out for 2 runs a day and homeschooling with an Ofsted rating of outstanding, then then you feel like you're a terrible person, terrible parent, terrible like friend. So it's really just a case of just quieting down the noise and letting other people from all around the world just sort of say what's going on and how it's been. And it's really quite cool. The time seems to go really fast as well. It's nice.
So, what, everyone can sort of join in that discussion, like video and audio, or just type in, or?
Yeah, at the moment we've not done anything other than type.
Okay.
The reason is because I think I don't want to put people off too early. I'd rather build a little bit of trust with bunker talk and some consistency, because I think people warm to. Well, look, there's leadership gaps all over the place right now for all of us, and so if something's regular and it's consistent and it's secure, people are going to gently warm to that because there's not much of that going on elsewhere.
Exactly.
So once that's there, and it's like like you said, what day is it? It's Tuesdays now. I know that. Event like this week, for example, I've got my first guest. And as in someone who's going to be on a video with me.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking to everybody together, right? And from there, we'll just sort of bring in someone like as a sort of an audience member on the video. Yeah. So it's just like little by little. But that is the goal.
To bring everyone in, that's the end goal, sort of thing.
Yeah,
stages in a way that's consistent, and people can build that trust with one another.
Yeah, because when you're not in a world at the moment where you can spend time with people face to face, seeing people's faces is still very important, especially on a video. I mean, mate, like I put out a load of stuff about this early first 2-3 weeks of lockdown. Like, imagine if we were going through this 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, we would not have video calls, we would not have high-speed internet, we would not have on-demand shopping, next day delivery, we would not have that infrastructure. So we would be sat here.
I saw that post. Yeah. You had a classic Nokia phone. And that made me, I was like, what's this about? It's like, look, clicked on it. And I was like, wow, that is a good point. We would struggle with this lockdown in the 90s, 100%.
It would be terrible. If you think about all of the things that are at risk at the moment, the two big ones, obviously the main big one is health. And do not underestimate the warmth that comes from people speaking to people on FaceTime in terms of their mental health and how they feel in their heart, and not feeling as lonely because they can see someone that they love, they can see their face.
Yeah.
Take that away, you've got a worse position of health. You also wouldn't be able, Joe Wicks would be doing his morning workouts, that's for sure. So you'd have a decline of fitness as well, probably, because people can still do their fitness, right? Then you look at the economy and shit me, like, people are treading, some people are doing better. And it's great because this is what economy is. It moves, it shifts. It doesn't just stop and go.
Yeah.
Certain people are going to do better because their business better suits these conditions. Other businesses are not, and unfortunately some will fall off. But then there's these sort of curious people in the middle that are just sort of treading water, and it's because of technology. Because of technology, people can still charge for their services if they can do it through video. Because of technology, people can still do things like via live streams or via fast internet tech stuff, and you wouldn't have been able to do that before. So the economy would have been on its arse big time.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think we are, and I always like to lean towards gratitude, but I think it would have been a hell of a lot worse, even if it was 5 years ago even.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I know my hours of YouTube have certainly gone up in just learning new things, and I kind of get this impression that if I don't come out of lockdown without a new skill, I've wasted my time.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That's a really interesting way of looking at it, and I think it's great. Like, people should take this opportunity if they have it to work on their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So whether they learn something, they get fit, whatever. And one of the best ways to approach it is if you look at your life from a sort of bigger picture view and go, okay, there's people out there at the moment that haven't got a relationship, like a loving relationship, and they're like, oh, well, I'm in lockdown, I'm never going to meet anyone now. Like, that's a whole more time on the clock, right? Then you've got people that are like, oh, my job, I'm not happy with my job, and now I can't even work or get a new job. Well, in those situations, what we can do is work on our physical, mental, and emotional well-being, and emotional skills and mental skills and physical like health, so that we come out of this with a higher stock value, which then means that, and I love this, and we go out there and we're able to like date and stuff. People who worked on themselves, it doesn't just mean about physical, emotional, and mental as well. They can, I mean, the emotional one's huge, because you can come out of this come out of the lockdown and be like, yeah, like I learned so much about myself, and that's just elevated your stock value. Whereas if you come out and you're like anxious and like, oh, I've just been sitting indoors doing nothing and I feel like I'm out of shape and I feel like I'm sluggish, then that's going to have an effect on how you are in a date. So there's that side of things. There's the job interview, the job interview. Like, I swear down, the best question any employer could ask in the next, hopefully, short-term future is, tell me what you did with yourself in the COVID-19 lockdown.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they say, oh, you know, it was tough, but I just did my best, you go, cool, tick. Oh, you know, I learned new skills. I learned how to cook. I learned a language. Great, tick. I just looked after my kids and survived. Great, tick. I just played Fortnite. Yeah, go over there. You know, and I mean that with humor, but also respect, because everything that we're doing now does count. And the fact that you said you're learning stuff, I think is great. Yeah, definitely.
So, like, I just want to rewind the clock a little bit and go back to the TED Talks, the first ever TEDx in Newport, TEDx Cast Newydd, because obviously you were the headline speaker there. You know, could you say headline? Well, you were the last speaker there.
I was on last, yeah.
You had a big job to sort of sign off and leave everyone with that in a good mood. So before the lead up to the TED Talk, how were you feeling? Did you kind of think you were? Did you feel confident? Did you think you were going to go in and ace it, or were you nervous? What was your thought process behind that?
Yeah, I was nervous, and it was a different level of nerves that I'd never felt before. And I've challenged myself physically before and had like various competitive sports that I've taken part in, and I've done a lot of speaking, and I've done a lot of I used to do fitness presenting as well, so I'd be on stage doing choreographed moves and choreographed lines, so I'm used to being in that sort of spotlight, if you like. But I had a different level of nerves, and it was because, and this, I mean this with humility, but it's because I knew that I was good. Yeah. Whereas before, I've always sort of been, well, let's just do my best and see how it goes and show them what I've got, you know?
Yeah.
Because I knew that I'm capable of delivering a good talk, I didn't want to let myself down in terms of what I knew I could do. Because, you know, and you were there, and you know, I said it as well. I took it very seriously in the fact that I didn't want to do another one. If I didn't get the chance to, I'd be okay with that, because I've said what I need to say. And although I know that whatever I said and however I said it, it still would have ticked that box inside of me, and I still would have felt good about that, I wanted to watch it back and know that my actual performance as a speaker was as good as I could be. And that was the sort of added level of nerves, because I knew that I could talk about it. I knew that I could do it, and it would be fine in the moment. But my thoughts were on the viewer of the YouTube video.
What others are going to perceive it to be like.
The ones that weren't in the room. And for me to take it to where I know that I could potentially, I would have to perform at my best. And so that, I've never had that before. I've always been like, well, I'll just do my thing and I know it's going to be good enough. With this, I was like, man, this has to be polished. So I was pacing up and down the corridor outside, and I'm like, I was hot. And then I'm like, I was talking to people, but I didn't know what I was saying. It was really weird.
What?
Like, I was just talking just absolute gibberish to people, like asking them questions like that didn't matter whatsoever, but it was just nervous energy.
You seemed so cool and so composed when I saw you on set.
No, I was back there for a couple of hours, like just yeah, like didn't know what to do with myself, you know. And mate, well, yeah, I'll let you kind of take this where you want to take it next. And if you go to where I think you're going to go, then I'll have something else to share with you. But yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, well, so the topic, your discussion on legacy, it absolutely lit the room up. I mean, I was there all day, and I listened to all the talks, and I enjoyed a lot of the talks. But I think that last one, you kind of like created an energy within this room where everyone's eyes lit up, everyone's on the edge of this seat. I think, I don't know how you did it, but you seem to generate a lot of energy in this room where there was a lot of feel good factor, and you could see that on the audience members' faces. And I know myself, having spoken to the guests there, I know that they felt very empowered by that speech and hopeful for the future. So the legacy talk, did you have that in your mind? Have you always had like a legacy talk where that's a big it's a big thing for you that you want to get out there, or was it pre-planned, the legacy talk, or was some of it off the cuff as well? I know you mentioned a lot with your brother as well. I think that struck a big chord with everyone when you dropped that as well, and I think I think we engaged a lot more emotionally when that was brought up. So have you always sort of wanted to tell his legacy story through that talk? Because that's what I felt like.
Yeah, it's a really great observation. Basically, everything came together. You know, the result of the last from the moment stood there on the red dot. Everything from the last decade just came together, and what I mean by that is my speaking ability that I'd been working on for 10 years.
Yeah.
My story of my brother and going to New Zealand and coming back, and then unfortunately he passed away, which changed the whole direction of my life, as you can imagine. If you're listening to this, I know you know this because you were there.
Yeah.
In the talk. So that, and being able to talk about that with a level of energy that was still emotional and raw, but not where I lose myself. And that's because I've delivered that talk a couple of times, and we actually have a charity as well that we set up that I'm the chairman of. So I've spoken at various gala ball dinners, and so that kind of got to a new level of clarity. Then the angle of legacy itself, and really getting to understand that, having had kids by that point, as well as noticing what it was like for my brother when he passed away, but also now having a physical passing on of DNA and understanding that actually that's legacy. So my understanding of legacy had evolved to a point as well, and everything came to this sort of crescendo of clarity. And so it wasn't just me talking about, don't take life, don't waste any time, or you only live once, because you could take that message from that talk. But it was more than that. It was about the small things making an impact on the big thing. And I wouldn't have been able to get to that point if it had even been a month before. So it was just meant to be. Like, I knew that was what I was going to talk about. And that's probably why I was so nervous, because I just felt like this expectation within myself that the stars had aligned, and I'm only going to get this one chance to shoot now. Because even doing it the next day or a week later, or even doing it now, it wouldn't be the same, because we change our perspective as we go. And, I just think it was the right time. It was the right combination. And, I was delighted with it. I was I've never been as nervous when I watched it.
That's what I was going to say. So when you watched it and obviously perceived yourself from the viewer's perspective, were you happy with the result? Were you happy with the performance?
Oh, I was happy, and I knew quite early on when I was watching it that I was happy. There was only one technical thing that I wasn't happy with, and that's just looking at my delivery.
I delivered it fantastically.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But like gymnastics, if like a gymnast goes up and I know where my 0.2 or 3 reduction off a 10 was.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm aware of that, but that was part of the nerves as well, because I know how I can perform, and I just really wanted to do myself justice, and I did. Don't get me wrong, I was thrilled.
You definitely did.
But as a matter of being a professional speaker, wanting to improve, just like an athlete would, you look at your performance and you know where you can improve. So I knew that. I knew that it was good, and I'd done well very soon into the video. But mate, I was sat there, my wife next to me, and I had my knees up by my chest, I was like hugging my knees like this. I was shivering. You know, like when you're shivering and you're not cold,
Yeah.
but you just can't stop it.
Yeah.
You know, you're like shivering like this. At,
Nervous.
at one point, my wife looked at me and she looked at the telly and she was like, what's the matter with you? You're not the same person. Because I was just like that. And the guy on the telly was like, yeah, and I'm like you know, hugging my knees. And I did cry. I cried when, I mean, even though I was the one telling the story, I still cried listening to it. But it felt a big shift. Because I didn't feel the shift necessarily when I delivered the talk, but I felt the shift when I watched the talk and I brought a conclusion to that circle. It was like, that's it. I don't need to. And now when I talk about it, it feels different. You know, like when I talk about my brother, it just feels different now. I feel like that was the decade, like the end of that 10-year journey was just, I've done it now. That is the legacy of that now for me and him, and me talking about him, and like what a stage to do it on at a TEDx talk.
Well,
like,
this is why I think the audience connected so well, because the talk itself with the inclusion of your brother, it's kind of immortalized him.
Yeah.
In his legacy in that moment, and I think that certainly hit me in the feels. I know a lot of other people did as well. I did want to try to speak to you afterwards, but we have to obviously deal on with the set and make sure everything's cleaned up. Did you have a lot of people come up to you and speak with you after you delivered your talk?
Yeah, it blew me away. It really did. It wasn't necessarily the volume of people. It was just the look that they had. The look in their eyes. It was, I've not seen it before or since. It was just like a fully, maybe it felt like I'd just fully given everything I had. And so they just reciprocated that in their eyes. It was like they were just giving, I could almost see their soul. I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it felt like that energy. You mentioned the word energy. It was just like,
it was high energy.
Everything was just open. And I remember I said it to my wife. I was like, she's like, how was it at the end? I was like, people were looking at me weird. Like they were looking at me weird, but it felt like the right kind of weird. It was special. Yeah, it was really special. I'll never forget. Like the last few seconds of the talk, I stood. I can remember the feeling. I finished. I said the last words, and then there was like this vacuum. It was like a it was weird. It was like a vacuum, and then just went. It was so strange. And then people started clapping, standing up.
Yeah, standing ovation.
I was like, oh, and I didn't know what to do or feel, so I just stood.
I just stood there.
Yeah, I just stood there and was just like, and when I really think back and really analyze that moment, I did have a dialogue going with my brother. I totally did. Because it didn't feel, this is very easy to say now. It would be very easy for me to make this up, but it's true. I definitely had this happening, this dialogue, that it wasn't like, I've done it. It was like, we've done it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and it was special. It was really special.
There was honestly a glow in people's eyes I'd never seen before. I mean, I think I looked at myself in the mirror and I had a bit of a glow in my eye, and it's incredible. I don't know how it happens and how people like speakers like yourself can instill that energy in people. I have no idea. I'm sure there's science behind it in some way, but
yeah,
you blew the roof off with that speech, and it was a pleasure to have you. So since the TED Talk, have you shown it to many people? Have you sort of used it as a platform almost to new clients, new people? Have people messaged you about out the blue about the TED Talk?
Yeah, to a certain extent. And I jump on and check the comments and always look to reply on the comments. as well, and that's cool. Well, I actually had a lot of people from the US jump on the bandwagon that I sound like David Beckham, apparently, and that was what they found that more interesting than the TEDx talk. But no, like I have no expectation. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I know why you asked the question, and it makes sense. And if I was to do another one, I would have that in mind. I would have right, what can I talk about here to position myself as the expert in a certain area?
Yeah.
But I didn't have that expectation on this whatsoever. I was just like, let me throw this out into the world and just see what happens. So opportunities haven't necessarily come out, but credibility is there. Obviously, when you do a TEDx talk, that brings a massive amount of credibility. I always use the photos. I mean, they're great photos as well. The guys that took those photos, thank you for the photos. And it's on the bottom of my email footer, check out the TEDx talk. And I just think I think it was another great thing is it was the right time to do one, because every day there's more talks. Every day there's more events, and well, not at the moment, obviously, but there is a saturation point at some point where that becomes less, I think, of a wow factor and more of a okay. And I mean that with just observing, as the numbers rise, it becomes less acute. So I'm grateful for the fact that it's added credibility, but I never had any expectation of, this is going to be great, I'm going to get more opportunities out of this. It wasn't really about that for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you ever consider doing another TED talk, or is that sort of on pause until, obviously it's on pause with lockdown, but would you ever sort of, are you done with TED and are you pursuing new ventures, or would you do another TED talk?
I would do another one, and I would do it about something completely different.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I would probably do it as more of a sharing a professional insight rather than sharing personal insight. Although you could suggest there were professional insights within the personal insight, because it was, my line of work. But what I wouldn't want to do, it's almost like, and this sounds really lame, but it's like you release an album, you don't want to make an album that sounds the same as the previous album.
100%. Yeah.
You want to use that because at the end of the day, I treat speaking in the same. You've probably picked this up already. It's not necessarily like a sport, although it has the elements of being an athlete. You want to improve, you want to train.
Performance.
It's more of an art. Yeah, it's more of an art. So when you do something and you treat it like that, like an art, you always want to make sure that it expresses where you're at right there and then in your life. When people make albums, that's what they do. When people paint pictures, when they write books, that's what they do. And so to do a TEDx talk again on the same kind of thing, it would sort of suggest to me that I hadn't evolved much and moved into a new area of creativity. So I wouldn't say no, but I wouldn't do it on the same kind of thing.
Okay. So we're almost about to wrap up now. For people sort of maybe thinking about giving a TEDx talk for the first ever time, what advice would you give to them?
Be about them, not you. Biggest advice. And that's just not for there in the room, but that's for anyone who you have the privilege, because it's your privilege that they've watched it or click it, because they could do anything with their time. They could watch anything. So for anyone who watches it, they aren't going to be as engaged if it's not about them. A lot of people stand in any talk, in any speech, in any platform, and I did this, and I know this, and I did that, and then that's great, but it needs to be about them, because we are all the hero in our own story.
Yeah.
So when we listen to someone speak and we engage with it, it's because we adopt that as us, right? So we go, I'm like that. I've had and you'll notice in my talk, and those of you that have seen it, if you watch it again, you'll notice that I very quickly flip everything away from me, and I make it very clear, and I use my hands, and I'm like, this is about you. This isn't about me, because you've had things in your life. And I think that's the turning point in the video for me, in the talk, where it shifts. So my advice is, whatever you're talking about, it doesn't actually matter. Like literally, you could be. There you go. I've got a notepad. You can talk about notepads and how it's useful to use a notepad instead of a computer.
Yeah.
Don't stand there on the door or any talk and go, so once I was using a computer and I did this, and then I realized I want to use a notepad and I wrote this amazing whole, like, great.
Yeah.
What does it mean to the person watching? Because that's what they care about.
Excellent. Well, Tommy, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time and speaking. Thank you so much.
You.
Best of luck with everything in lockdown, and I look forward to seeing you speaking and hearing from you soon.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you, Tommy.
Sweet.
Take care.
So what I'll do, buddy, is I'll stop the recording.
Yeah.